Thank you to the patrons for supporting the channel. Welcome back. Today, as voted on by my patrons, we're covering real lost media. Lost episodes, lost games, all sorts of things like that. If you would like to have input on what I make next, then consider joining the Patreon. So, lost media. Typically, this term is associated with creepypastas like Squidward's Suicide or Suicide Mouse. But the community surrounding the very real phenomenon of lost media is not necessarily a spooky or scary place. But considering this is a mainly spooky channel, you know what the focus is going to be. Today we're going to be talking about a variety of lost media that have now been found for the most part. Many times, people don't even believe they're real, much like Saki Sonobashi. But these are very real, and their stories range from spooky to just weird. Let's start with a famous one, the Lost Pinwheel short, Clockman. In 2012, user Commander Santa posted this on the Flood forums. This short animation was terrifying as a child. The scene is still burned into my mind 28 years later. It's of a young boy sleeping in his bed. Above his bed is a ticking clock. All the lights in the room are off and it is very dark. Suddenly, the clock begins to slow down. It's ticking and eventually stops. On midnight. When the clock stops, a greenish-bluish man climbs out of the clock. The boy wakes up just in time to see this man dressed in black grab him out of bed and kidnap him by carrying him through a window. The clock man takes the boy on some kind of terrifying adventure and brings him back to his bed before sunrise. Creepy. It sounds almost like a creepypasta, and a lot of people didn't even believe it was real. But it was real, and the search for it would last many years until finally in 2017 it was discovered on YouTube. Eventually the English dub was discovered and we have what the poster originally saw. The search spanned from folk tales to the paranormal to fever dreams. It turns out it was actually a cartoon created by Dagmar Dubkova, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and Jason Silhan, called O Paradive Sally. A communist Czech short film, it was sold off to places unknown to the creators. Eventually, it made its way to an English dub and was sold to Nickelodeon and was aired on the Nickelodeon show Pinwheel. I think it's a mix of the creepy animation, music, and characters that make it so unsettling, especially for a kid with a fever. And so finally, the Clockman search was put to a rest. A very long search, but I think worth it. Now let's move on to another lost episode, Cracks, the Lost Sesame Street short. In 2008, John Armand began asking around about an old 1970s Sesame Street short he remembered watching when he was a kid. It was about a girl who imagined that the cracks on her wall were animals and made friends with them, and eventually stumbled upon a crack monster. And the search for this short would prove to be even stranger than Clockman. Joining forces with someone else who had believed to have seen it when they were younger, Jennifer Bourne, the two went on a long search to find the lost short that had both terrified and mesmerized them at the same time. And one day, John Armand gets an anonymous message. We have the copy. A deal was made. John Armand would be sent a CD of the short under the stipulation that he did not share it with anyone. And not long after, a package arrived seemingly delivered personally by the anonymous source, and at long last the search was over. Kind of. Many people began to question the authenticity. He had randomly just discovered it, but he wasn't allowed to show it. Seems awfully convenient, and many were skeptical. Eventually, John Armand shared it with his partner in crime, Jennifer Bourne, and she confirmed it was real. But again, they couldn't share it with anyone. So other members of the community had to continue the search. Diekate, the founder of the Lost Media Wiki, began searching himself, and eventually got an email from an anonymous source. The message contained nothing but a video file. It was the short, the Crackmaster. So, with no stipulation or contract, Diekate was free to share it. And so it was found and released.
While laying in her bed, the cracks overhead more and more looked like a camel. Today's a rainy day and I can't go out and play. Would you take me for a ride, camel? Said the camel crack, climb upon my back. And right through the wall they did go. We've all been fine, meet a new friend of mine. She has come to meet crack creatures here. And this is all of you? Yes, now that you're here too. But perhaps not so, said Monkey Crack. At night behind the door, I think I've heard one more. Then let us all go make a new crack friend. So they happily skipped into where they'd never been, and in corner found a giant crack. Who are you, they said. The crack just growled instead and made himself look very big and mean. He said, I am Crack Master. But just then the wall plaster began to crumble to the floor, and where the monster stood were only beams of wood. He destroyed himself trying to be mean. Camel, thank you for the ride. The rain has stopped outside. We'll go and see the cracks again someday.
The exact reason why it was so kept under the radar is not exactly clear at this point, but many believe it's because of the term crack. At the time, that word wasn't so associated with, crack cocaine, but once they became sort of synonymous, I think you can start to see why terms like crack friends and crack monkey would not necessarily want to be used on Sesame Street. Yeesh. And while it may seem more avant-garde and scary, the meaning behind the short is more melancholy than anything. It's about children finding joy in poverty, make-believe in a literally broken home. Some think the Crack Master represents yelling heard through the walls, or just the harsher parts of reality bleeding into the character's imagination. Honestly, it's a pretty amazing animated short. Now, not every piece of lost media is necessarily scary or spooky or that mysterious. For instance, games that have been permanently removed from the App Store like Flappy Bird and Minecraft Pocket Edition Lite could be considered lost media as well. A user on the lost media subreddit, SuperMeatBoy112, is actually collecting them. In a similar vein, PT, the playable teaser for the game Silent Hills, has been completely wiped from the PlayStation Store. Unless you already had it, you can't get it. Legally. And then there's something of particular interest to me, the Titanfall 1 Lost campaign. I love Titanfall and Titanfall 2, but I had no idea there was actually going to be a campaign for the first game until I saw this leaked footage. Recently, I was a part of a search for some lost media myself. While doing research for this video, I stumbled across a post by King Jaji. It detailed a song called Mr. Nevermind. It's been uploaded to YouTube by someone else looking for the original producer, singer, anything. Apparently, quite a few people remember listening to it on SoundCloud, but its source has been wiped from the internet. So after some digging, I found a song titled Mr. Nevermind Final Mix on a site called tablyricsfm.com. It listed the song in the discography of an artist called KGZ, who's actually a guy named James Landino. He's actually produced a lot of music based around games and anime. Using that name, I actually uncovered some other references to the song, but they were all dead links. So I reached out to James on Twitter, and he confirmed that he was the one that made the song back when he was in college, and the vocals were done by a musician known as Her Name is Kate. Apparently there was some parallel investigation going on because in the comments of that original video, someone else, Phil Swift, followed a very similar investigation path, even narrowing it down to James Landino. I just happened to be the first one to reach out to James himself. And so another lost media case solved. The lost media community is great. It's so accessible yet really intense. You can jump into any investigation, find new leads, and discover something that would have been lost otherwise, with no barrier to entry except just some dedication. And it's all for a really good cause, preserving art, whether it be books or drawings or media of any kind. I want to thank Blame It on Jorge for making the very easy to digest videos about Clockman and the Crack Master. That was the bulk of my research for this video. So if you want more details about the mysteries or search surrounding those, check out those videos. So let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments, and let me know what I should cover next on my Twitter. You should also follow me there because that's when I announce when I'll be streaming at twitch.tv/SaganHawks. See you all next time. Oh, also, I found this lost media episode of The Twilight Zone. Here, take a look.
Imagine, if you will, a world where someone named Sagan Hawks creates YouTube videos. In this world, some have decided to support him monetarily. Now, what would that mean? Well, Sagan Hawks in this universe may want to thank the people that support him. Those people being Spring Bonnie LK44, Jay Batsby, Audrey and Michael Hawks, and Kit Kat. Something, something, something. The Twilight Zone.
I look like Dracula.